Is Thursday, October 12th. Congressman Scott DesJarlais is joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline. I know Congressman are going to have to put you on the payroll. You're on with Brian Wilson yesterday during the drive in the afternoon talking about the debate going on Capitol Hill within the Republican Party, talking about who should be the Speaker of the House. And there's been some updates and some developments on that, so I want to get to all of that. But Steve Scalise has received the nomination. I guess my big question is, will he actually get enough votes to actually become Speaker of the House? And what do you think about that? And did you vote for Steve Scalise? Or I was Team Jordan myself.
I was Team Jordan as well. I think he and I share the probably more similar conservative principles. I think he's a great messenger and has been doing a great job as Judiciary Chairman. So as far as my district is concerned, I certainly had more calls of support for Jim Jordan, and he's been a longtime friend of mine. Actually, I've known them both for 13 years. But, we need to have someone that can express the conservative message on the border, on spending on energy independence, and Jim Jordan, I think, would do a better job at that. But ultimately, in the conference, after long question and answer periods, it was a very even vote. I think Scalise prevailed by about 14 out of 220 votes, so it just shows how divided the conference is still. And we don't really have a good, clear schedule for today. The House is supposed to meet at noon. We don't know what for yet. I'm still waiting on further information as to what the next move is.
Let me ask you this. What can Steve Scalise bring to the table that Kevin McCarthy couldn't?
I don't think there's a lot of difference there, and that was the argument back in January when we went 15 rounds. If it wasn't Kevin McCarthy, Steve Scalise being the majority leader seemed like the next logical choice, and I say that because, again, the conference was pretty much evenly split. Jordan would be considered probably more conservative than Steve Scalise, and it shows that our conference is probably split that way, that we have moderate Republicans from swing states, and we have more conservative Republicans from red states like Tennessee, Alabama, and so on. So bottom line is we have to coalesce behind somebody to lead us. Right now we don't have that leadership, and you can really feel the vacuum. And I would think that before the 8 individuals chose to vacate the chair, they should have had a better exit strategy, because right now we're really paralyzed at a pretty important time. All times are important, but there's an awful lot going on right now not to be legislating and doing our jobs.
Well, there's so much going on. Congressman Scott DesJarlais joining us at 7:10 here on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. So talk about that vacuum a little bit. I know that there's some debate back and forth over, whether or not we can proceed with aid to Israel without a Speaker of the House. Talk a little bit about the vacuum that's going on within the Republican Party. There's a lot of folks out there on the other side that are saying that there's a lot of chaos on your side, our side of the aisle. Would you describe it as chaos?
It's certainly disorganization, so I guess it's all semantics. But if something happens to the President of the United States, there's a plan in place. We have a vice president. I hate to think of that right now with the current administration, but there is a progression of power that is established. In the House, we have a majority leader, but it's not a vice speaker. So we don't have that natural progression. So now here we are in the middle of a conference with people who have varying opinions and cannot seem to come to a consensus. There are a handful of people that absolutely will not vote for Steve Scalise. There's a handful of people that won't vote for Jim Jordan. And frankly, I don't know if they'd vote for anybody. I don't know who their perfect candidate would be. So it creates a real problem when you can't unify and understand that no matter who is our speaker, they're going to have huge challenges with a Democratic Senate and Democratic White House. And I think in Congress we have to learn that small victories are acceptable if you strive just certainly for sheer perfection of a conservative principle. You're probably not going to get everything you want. In government that's divided, there's got to be compromise, and that seems to be lost on Washington right now. There's certain things I won't compromise on, but there are a lot of things I will, and we don't even seem to work on the things that we can agree on.
When we talk about what happened in Israel and the battle going on right now in Gaza, Israel is getting pummeled now from the north. Is there a feeling of added pressure to get a speaker so that, we can move more unified to support Israel? And, where do you fall in that camp? I mean, what does supporting Israel mean to you?
Well, with any of our allies around the world that we pledge to support, we need to be there for them. And yes, I mean, certainly I think that adds pressure in a way. I think the fact that what is happening in Israel is taking some of the pressure off of Congress right now, because if this conflict wasn't going on, I'm sure the media would have us in the crosshairs completely, and that would put even more pressure. But in a way, it's a distraction from our problem at hand in selecting a speaker. So there's certainly a conversation that it's important that we get this done because of Israel, but we need to get it done because of the border, which is a crisis we've lived with every day. So there's so many things going on, and when we're not functioning, it's got to be frustrating to the American people to see all the problems going on around them and then have infighting within the party here in Washington.
We've got Republicans calling for, I know Tom Cotton was one on the Senate side, who are calling for this $6.5 billion to be, refrozen, if you will. And, I've been talking about this all morning long. I've been speaking about this really since Monday, so I don't need to over-explain it to the audience yet again. But I would assume, Congressman Scott DesJarlais, that you would agree that this $6.5 billion should be refrozen, although Andrew McCarthy was writing this morning that money cannot be refrozen. I mean, it's already, Qatar's already got the money, and they're going to give it to Iran. I mean, is there any solution to that $6.5 billion?
Well, we got to acknowledge that Iran is the number one state sponsor of terrorism, and the money should have never been unfrozen in the first place.
Yep.
So, I mean, that was a horrendous error on the part of the Biden administration. And to think that Iran is not involved in these attacks is just putting your head in the sand. That this is who they support. Iran wants Israel wiped off the face of the earth. They're constantly saying death to America, burning American flags. They are our enemies. So to think that they're not involved in this is just ignoring reality. And I mean, same with China right now. They have political ambitions and military ambitions, and we have adversaries around the world that are probably just reveling in the dysfunction that they're seeing within the American military, recruiting problems, wokeism, DEI. And so, we're headed for a financial cliff in this country. We're headed for global conflict if we're not careful, and it's kind of unfolding before our eyes.
It sure is. 7:15, Congressman Scott DesJarlais joining us on Nashville's Morning News. More with the congressman coming up next. Busy day out on the roadways. 7:15, time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment, WTN Traffic Center. $7:16, partly cloudy, a high near 80 today, right now 54 at SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. Congressman Scott DesJarlais joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline. Congressman, I know that, and everyone agrees who listens to this radio station, that this administration, they seem absolutely clueless and tone deaf. And it, of course, begs the question when you hear John Kirby say that they can't connect Iran to these specific attacks, even though the Wall Street Journal has reported that the Iranians have been approving of that specific attack. As a matter of fact, their own military helped train Hamas in the planning of this attack. I mean, that's at least what the Wall Street Journal is reporting. Do you believe that the administration is telling you the truth when they say that they can't connect Iran to these attacks? Because this is the same administration that knows damn right well that the border is not secure, but they told us the border was secure for 3 years now.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a strategy of appeasement. I'm not sure American people wants to go to war with Iran right now, but you also can't ignore the fact that they are not our friends, and they certainly are involved in sponsoring this terrorism. That takes money, and so you can put two and two together. They can pretend that this money it can't be used for anything but humanitarian reasons, but I guess that would free up other Iranian money to continue to support terrorists. So however you want to look at it, I think it's an ignorant stance. What's going on in Israel, that attack was horrific. I was listening to your show earlier, and you were discussing the various horrors of war, and clearly this attack was designed to terrorize. When in modern day warfare, it's usually soldiers fighting soldiers, and we've worked hard over the years to not involve civilians and to try to avoid civilian casualties when we take military action. But when you do behead babies, or that you do rape women and you videotape that and you parade them in the street, that is designed to terrorize. I mean, killing is killing. If you send a bomb into an apartment building and there's a daycare and all the children are killed, that's horrific. But when you're purposely trying to create visuals to terrorize, that is a different type of action. It's like what ISIS was doing. Well, people forget that Trump went in 2017 and systematically basically destroyed ISIS through Syria and Iraq. And don't think for a minute that there weren't civilian casualties. It wasn't reported the way this is being reported because it's so sudden and so focused. But that type of behavior is terrorism, and so going after Hamas and rooting them out of the Gaza Strip is the right thing to do, just like we had to get rid of ISIS. Now, when you're in a condensed area with a high population, it makes it more tricky. Palestinians that are under Hamas control that don't want to be need to flee to Egypt or somewhere. Many Ukrainians left to Poland when the war started. So, we've had 7 million people come across our border. I'm not saying that everybody in Gaza is a terrorist, but terrorists control that area, and so there has to be a strategy to get innocent civilians out, but they have to take out Hamas just like Trump took out ISIS.
Well, and it's funny, Congressman, that you say people forget that Trump took out ISIS. This audience and yours truly, we have not forgotten. Clearly, you have not forgotten either, but you're right. The media certainly has forgotten. And the Democrats don't even want to remember what Trump did to systematically take care of ISIS. And that's what Israel's got to do. We did what we had to do as it related to ISIS after Obama basically allowed them to rampage across the Middle East. Trump came in and he did what he had to do. And we got tough, and we needed to be tough, and we took the gloves off. That's what Israel is doing right now. And if there's going to be civilian casualties in Gaza, everybody knows that. And it is incredibly sad because there are people there in Gaza, I'm assuming, that don't support Hamas, but unfortunately, they're going to be caught in the crossfire. And that's what Hamas did. That's not what Israel, I'm monologuing, I apologize, but that's what Hamas did. That's not what Israel is doing. Israel has to do this to protect their own people from the horrific nature of what Hamas, did in these attacks. And we'll have to leave it there. Is there anything else that we've got about a minute left, Congressman? So many things I want to, speak with you about, but I've only got a minute left. What's the most important that we haven't discussed as of yet?
Well, I mean, circling back to where we started, I hope today that the conference can come together and we can get a speaker elected and move forward. It's not going to be a perfect speaker. There's no such thing. They're not going to please everyone. But we've got to be able to function as a Republican Party. I really worry about our nation if we don't get an administration in place that pays attention to what's going on in our own country and around the world. There's so many problems facing our nation, and I just really hope that we can come together so we can address these problems.
721.